Hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And a couple more birthday cards using the So Many Candles wafer die set. I used this in a sort of recent video a couple weeks ago, whenever it was. And I did a bunch of ink smushing and splattering and all the things. That was the first idea I had. I have many ideas. I don't know why. I'm doing it again where I like fixate on like a certain product, whether it be a wafer die, stamp set, whatever. Right now, it's candles. I got ideas. So, my next idea, I wanted to create those striped birthday candles, you know? There's classic striped birthday candles, but I wanted to add a bit of glitter to it because it's a birthday card, you know? So, I pulled out a literal decade-old stencil. It's still available. Everything I use will be linked below. Pulled out an old stencil and some little mini paper pouncers and inks and glitter paste and just all the things. I had loads of fun. So, if you keep watching, I'll show you guys how I made these cards. So this is one of the few times that I'm going to do the stenciling and everything before die cutting. Because those that have watched my videos know that I generally like to die cut first, even though a lot of times it means more mess before I'm adding like ink, blending, coloring, whatever it is I'm going to do to die cuts. I generally like to die cut first. However, with these, because I'm adding the glitter paste, you don't want to die cut them first. If I was just doing the ink blending, I totally would have just die cut them first. Would have been simple. But because I wanted to add glitter paste, it is way easier to die cut after, because otherwise you're going to have paste all, you know, it gets all around the edges, etc. So I trimmed down my cardstock. I'm using Simon Says Stamps Smooth White 120 pound cardstock. Again, for this type of procedure, technique, whatever, using the glitter paste and then die cutting, I recommend a very heavyweight cardstock for this. I forgot until after I was actually did the die cutting, that die cutting through glitter paste is a bit of a pain. It's not the same as like glitter paper. Anyway, I'll get to that. So I did a little bit of planning because I wanted to do a rainbow of colors, and I spaced out. You could see I just, made measurements because each of these die cuts 15 candles. So I was like, well, if I do 5 of each color, we're good to go. So I did my little pencil lines and just kind of, a lot of it was just eyeballing, just to split each of these pieces up into 3 parts. Again, somewhat simple. You could just do separate pieces of cardstock, but this worked really easily. So using those pencil lines as a guide, that's where I use my Post-it tape. And then this stencil, this is what I mentioned in the intro. This is the diagonal stripe stencil. This came out a decade ago. Still available, still one of my most favorites. And actually, I might start using this stencil again more often now that I've got my paper pouncers, because this stencil was always a little bit of a pain to use because of there's no connection. You've got all these stripes. So I've shown in like much older videos where I would use like pixie spray, things like that, using my brushes in the direction of the lines because otherwise they move. And it's annoying, but having my little paper pouncers saves me all that aggravation. So I was like, oh, I might be using the stencil a lot more often now because I just don't have to fight with it. Because who does not love a good diagonal stripe? It just works for everything. So I used Post-it tape over where those little pencil lines were just to mask off, each little section. And then I did a rainbow of inks. I'll have links to the specific colors I use, but these are all Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated inks. And then I'm using my little pint-sized paper pouncers from Picket Studios. You could use the regular size ones for this. It doesn't matter. I just recently finally got my hands on these. So, and they're cute and little. I'm like, oh, of course I'm going to use them. But for something like this, it doesn't matter what which ones you use. And if you don't have something like this and you just have brushes, I just highly recommend either a bit of pixie spray or you just kind of drag the brush and you don't swirl it over a stencil like this if you don't have the pixie spray in place, because otherwise those little lines are just going to keep moving. So I did the blending, and then I'd clean the stencil between each panel so I didn't, mix up all my colors, and then clean the stencil again so there's nothing on it. put it back over my little backgrounds. And I'm also working on my little Waffle Flower grip mat that's just holding the cardstock and the stencil in place. And then now I'm applying some glitter paste. This is Gina K Glitz, like iridescent glitz glitter gel. Just something shiny, somewhat transparent that will let the colors, shine through all of this glitter paste. And I'm applying the paste in the direction of the stencil, because you definitely don't want to go against it, because again, it'll move those little pieces and it's just going to be a mess. Again, you could totally use pixie spray, but ever since I got the grip mats, I have not been using pixie spray at all, which is just nice. It's one less step I got to do. So I applied it just nice and thin over the stencil, removed that piece, did the exact same thing to the second stencil, just lined it up again with the lines that I had blended, and then applied the glitter gel again with my palette knife in the direction of the stencil. And then as soon as I was done, I immediately cleaned off my stencil, my grip mat, and my palette knife, because glitter gel, if you've ever worked with any sort of glitter paste, this stuff dries like cement. So clean it immediately. It'll save you tons of aggravation. And also press and seal. Talked about that a million times in videos, especially, again, more than anything else, glitter pastes. It's just because of the formulation of them. Press and seal over top of them. I press out the air. It keeps it sealed up. It extends the life. It doesn't make them indefinite, because glitter paste, any paste, do have a shelf life. They will not last forever. But having some press and seal on them definitely extends that shelf life. So after I was done all my stenciling and cleaned everything off, I set those backgrounds aside to dry. While they were drying, I created my actual card front backgrounds, and I used the exact same ink colors. This time I'm just blending them onto A2 sized panels of the same smooth white cardstock. And this time I'm using blending brushes, because I do not use my Pouncers for like blended backgrounds. Every once in a while I have. And I've done it, especially like my Halloween series, because the Pouncers aren't meant for like blending. They're just meant for like pouncing on ink, applying ink easily. But because they aren't brushes, they aren't going to blend. That's where my brushes come in handy. So I just used my blending brushes, and again, applied everything kind of in rainbow order. And with Simon's inks, and I've mentioned this in other videos, they do dry back quite a bit. They soften and they smooth out and they blend and they dry back as they, dry. So they'll look quite a bit more vibrant, and then they'll, soften and smooth out. Like when I apply the next stencil over this, I should have gone with darker ink colors to make it stand out a little bit more. But in the end, I was still happy with how everything turned out. So it's just something to always keep in mind with these types of inks. So I blended all of these colors onto these backgrounds, just kind of in like a swirl in rainbow order. And then I was using a bit of that Post-it tape over my fingers, just so I'm not getting fingerprints onto these panels. And then after I was done the blending, I'm going to use the confetti. Yeah, it's just called Confetti Stencil. This is another one that came out, I'm not even sure when. A while ago. Nope, that's the diagonal stripe. I'm just looking at my stuff here. This one came out like 4 years ago. So another like oldie but goodie favorite. So I put that stencil over these backgrounds, use my Pouncers and the exact same colors of ink. And like I said, if you want it to be more intense, I would go a shade darker with all of these colors, because I use kind of the middle shade, I think, from all of the ink trios from the Pawsitively saturated ink line. So if you wanted it to stand out more, just do a shade darker and it would pop. Like right now it looks great. That's kind of the look I was going for, but I had forgotten that this will dry back and soften a lot. Even what you're seeing now, it will dry back even more. And it's very, very subtle, which is still fun. But again, it's another one of those things to just kind of keep in mind. So after I applied the ink over those stencils, I'm going to add splatter. So use my Gonzai Tombi Starry Colors palette. And I'd already put water in the one gold shade that I wanted to use, swirled that up with my fan brush, and then splattered both of these backgrounds with that gold. And then now my backgrounds with the diagonal stripes are dry. And I'm going to die cut these with that So Many Candles wafer die. And like I said, die cutting through anything you've used glitter paste over can be a little bit tricksy. If they're basic shapes, not too bad. Anything intricate, it's gonna be a little bit more work. It's totally doable. This worked fine. Even though these are straight lines, this is still like an intricate stencil in a sense because it's small, and this is where having a good heavyweight cardstock helps. And also a die cut machine that can like apply enough pressure. My Anna Griffin Empress didn't have a problem with it. My Spellbinders Platinum 6, it would have die cut through this no problem as well. But yeah, glitter paste is just its own little beast sometimes. Die cutting actual like just glitter cardstock, no problems whatsoever. But glitter paste, it's tricksy. Worth it, but tricksy. So I ended up having to just carefully remove these from the wafer die, and I just used my little die pick and just kind of ran it under the pieces and was able to just slowly lift them out. Couldn't show that on camera because I had it like held up to my face and I wasn't on screen, you know, because I'm totally a professional, but got them out. It was fine. And then I started applying glue to the ends and then remembered I have to color the wicks. It's just a little like thing with me, you know, candles are lit, the wicks aren't going to be white, they're going to be black. That's how it's supposed to be, you know. But you can always skip this step. This is just a thing that, you know, I just must do. It's one of my rules. Anyway, I used a Copic marker for this. Usually it doesn't really matter, you know, use whatever black marker you've got. But again, some of the little wicks had that glitter paste on them as well. So a regular black marker probably would just end up like smearing. Again, it probably wouldn't matter because you probably aren't going to be touching it and it would have enough time to dry. But a Copic marker took care of that no problem. So I just quickly scribbled that over the little wick area and then added little dabs of craft tacky glue to the little circle area meant to adhere the little flames. And the flames I die cut from Simon's gold glitter cardstock because go big or go home. You know, let's just glitter all the things. So I adhered that, and then the second set I remembered to apply the Copic marker over the little wicks first, then apply the glue, then stick the little wicks into place. And this is where my little embellishment wand came in super handy. I'd put the little flames into a triangle tray and then picked them up with my embellishment wand, pressed them into place. Took no time at all. So once all that was done and the glue had dried, I snipped apart all of these little candles. I had, you know, determined that it's like I could do 2 of each color on these card fronts, and then I'd be left over with 1 remaining of each of the colors. And I was like, oh, I'll probably use those on the inside of the card because, you know, always got to have something on the inside. So I snipped them all apart and then started kind of laying them out, figuring out how I was going to adhere these. And I decided to adhere all of these candles with foam tape. I just used my little Waffle Flower foam strips, and I use the thin foam strips. So this is their, like, what is it? 1/16 of an inch thick. So just really thin foam strips. So ran that along the back of these candles and then popped them into place on these backgrounds. And then once those are adhered, flip this over, use my scissors, trim off all the bits that are hanging off the bottom. Repeated that on the second card panel. And these panels I had trimmed down. Again, wasn't filming it. Yeah, but just trim them down to slightly smaller than an A2 card base, and then I trimmed some black cardstock to just slightly larger, just to frame it a little bit, just to give it that little pop, you know. So adhered that to the black cardstock, and then for my main sentiment, I'm using the Birthday Wishes wafer dies, and I die cut them from Simon's matte gold cardstock, and then I die cut some scraps of black cardstock, and I only did 1 layer of the black cardstock behind the gold, just to give it that little extra bit. A little extra bit of dimension, a little extra strength, because these are going to get adhered on top of those candles. So I didn't need them to be super bulky since I already have the candles popped up with the foam strips. But again, if you really wanted to go all out and just make it like super extra dimensional, you could do the standard, you know, 2 or 3 layers behind the main die cut layer, but 1 was enough in my opinion. So I adhered those together with, again, just using craft tacky glue. And then I'm going to adhere these right on top of the candles, like I said. And again, you definitely want to use a strong adhesive. Anything you're adhering on top of glitter paste, glitter paper, glitter in general, If you're adhering on top of it, you want a strong adhesive. And my personal preference is a good, strong, just liquid adhesive, because glitter is tricksy. It like repels, really. Good, strong adhesive. Craft glue does the trick. Most liquid adhesives are going to work just fine. So I adhered the sentiment and got both parts laid out just like so. Repeated it on the second card front. And then the dots to the eyes, I again stuck them into little triangle trays, because otherwise I lose them. You know, they do. They like to just crawl off. And like I mentioned in, I think it was just my last video, how I spend like most of the time like crawling around the floor, picking up everything I drop on the floor. I've learned my lesson with little die cuts like that. Stick them in a little tray or a little container, or just anything, because those are the worst trying to find. So adhered those into place just directly onto these candles. It's just the easiest way to do it, using my little embellishment wand, little dabs of glue, stuck down the little black cardstock pieces and then the gold. And then for the insides of my cards are going to be top folding white A2 note cards, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm going to use that confetti stencil again on the inside of the cards, and I'm just going to apply the same colors of ink using my little mini Pouncers, and I'm going with just a slightly lighter hand. Like, I'm not like pressing really hard on the Pouncers. I'm not adding a ton of ink, because I don't want it to be so bright and so intense that it's hard to write over with a pen. So I kind of did it in the same order, in the same way I did the card fronts. Did that on both of the insides of the cards. And then I pulled out the birthday Shenanigans stamp set. This came out, I think, earlier this year. There's like it's a great big like 6x8 stamp set with just a ton of different sentiments. And then like some of them are kind of snarky and funny, which I love, like the one I'm using for these cards. So I pulled that out, and I'm stamping the sentiments with VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink onto the insides of these cards. So I just put them in my Misty, lined up the stamp, inked it up, closed the lid of my Misty, stamped both of the insides, and then adhered a couple of the leftover little candles onto the insides of the cards as well, since they were just sitting here all lonely. They needed to be used. So adhered these to the insides of the cards. So just adhered them with a bit of craft tacky glue. Did that to the inside of both. I only used 2 candles on the inside of each. I was going to use 3, but one of my candles, when I die cut, it was just slightly off. So it had both colors, and that really annoyed me. So I was like, no, I'm not using him. No, we're just putting 2 on the inside of each card. I'm fine with it. So adhered those into place, and then same thing, flipped them over, trimmed off the excess, and then I adhered the card fronts to the card bases, and that finished them off. So we've got shiny, glittery, rainbow splattery goodness for these birthday cards, and then a kind of like punny little snarky sentiment on the inside, which I don't know, I get a kick out of it. So as always, I will have a link below the video to my blog post. In the blog post, I'll have the photos and picture links, like a visual supply list that you guys can check out if you're interested. I will also, of course, have all the supplies listed and linked directly below the video as well for anyone who wants to check that out. Thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping and commenting. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you, and I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.